If this quilt don't make you Scrappy happy, then I don't think you're a scrap quilter. There is a reason behind this quilt. It's kind of selfish. Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Welcome back, and if you're new here, you are in for the sweetest treat. We're going to make a quilt using my absolute favorite technique when it comes to scrappy crumb quilting. As you watch today's tutorial, try to imagine this quilt in a cherry crumb cake quilt, strawberry crumb cake quilt, banana crumb cake quilt, an orange or lemon crumb cake quilt. I can't think of any more fruits. Anyways, you get the picture. Enough talking already, let's get busy. The key to this blueberry crumb cake quilt is to have as many different blues and patterns as possible. I chose 22-ish fat quarters for this quilt. Now you can go into your scraps and find different strips too, just to add in if you find that you don't have a whole fat quarter of it. Now the only thing that I really stayed true to when picking out my fabrics was that I wanted roses and I wanted different patterns and colors that went with the rose fabrics that I already had. I wanted it to be a really romantic looking blue quilt. I chose 16 focal fabrics, and in some cases they weren't even in the fat quarters that I chose. That's because I had them on hand. You may too, so if you have to allot for choosing the focal fabrics within this quilt from the fat quarters, make sure that you allot for that when you go to cut your strips. The first thing I did was, of course, press out all of my fat quarters, and if you know anything about fat quarters, they do not come squared up at all. So I ended up squaring up all of the sides first, and I layered about 4 together. Then it was time to just cut random strips. I cut anywhere between 1 3/4 inch strips to up to 3-inch strips. This is one time in quilting where you don't even have to measure the width of the strip, really. I mean, you just can cut randomly. Now you can see here, I did end up only cutting about 3/4 of this fat quarter, and I left that little bit that you see there on the white on the left of the screen. I didn't know how much I needed because I typically quilt creatively and I just never know, and I didn't want to waste it if I didn't need it, right? I picked an even number of darks and lights of all of the random strips. It didn't matter. One was a 2-inch, one was a 3-inch, one was a 1.5, or whatever, it doesn't matter. So I chose 8, and then I randomly put darks and lights together longwise in the strip. I then finger pressed them at the sewing machine, and then later on I went ahead and I pressed them. You do press after you're done, you know, with your strip sets. Now you can do 4 strips at a time or 6 strips. It doesn't really matter. I just chose 8 to do for this example, but honestly, it doesn't really matter because we're going to use it all. If you find that you have trouble with any bowing on your strip sets where it kind of bows out a little bit in the center or at one of the ends, you can initially start sewing at one end, flip your strip set and start sewing at the other end. I've done that before, but I noticed that if I just concentrate on using only a 1/4 inch seam allowance and letting that follow through from start to end on the strip set, I find that I have little to no bowing at all, so give that a try too. Next, you're going to take that nicely pressed strip set over to your cutting station, and you're going to line your ruler up, and you're going to use the lines of the seam allowance within your strips, and of course the bottom and top edges. And then you're going to clean off an edge, and then you're just simply going to cut those strips over again in that same width. You're going to go randomly 1.5, 2, 2 1/4, 2.5, 2 3/4, 3. You're going to do any width, it doesn't really matter. See these little pieces right here at the end that we cut off? Save those. We are going to use everything. I got about 7 good strips from that strip set. So I probably should have showed you this first before I started sewing the strips, but you know, hindsight, right? All I did was just collect all the darks together and all the lights together and put them by my sewing machine. And that's where I randomly chose what I wanted. That way you won't have two strip sets that are the same, because we don't want that. We don't want fabrics touching. That's how I work anyways. I really do try not to have two fabrics touching if I can. And a lot of times I don't see it until the very end that they're touching, but you know, that's just how quilting goes. But if I can help it, you better believe there will not be two that are the same. So here I'm just putting another random strip set together at the sewing machine. It's really quite nice and therapeutic just sewing all of these strips together. And then of course I went in, cleaned the edge off, and then I'm just again randomly cutting all of these strips. Looks like I got about 6 strips out of that set. Here's an interesting variation that I used within this quilt. I left some single strips out, a bunch of them, in different widths and darks and lights, because I'm going to utilize some of those strips within the blocks that I make. Another variation is to take 2 strips that are alike in width and sew them together, and that will make one big long strip. So that way you'll have some contrast within that block when we go to log cabinet. You'll see, you're gonna love this. The variations are truly endless, friends. Here I've taken 4 strips in a strip set, and then I've just simply taken another strip of fabric and I sewed it to that strip set, but longwise, or opposite the way that the strip set was going. And then I squared it up by cutting off those edges. And then here, look, I made this cute little strip set. I mean, this is so cute, friends. And then I just simply went ahead and cut the rest of that strip set in different widths. Remember those little cutoffs that I was talking about earlier that come from making this quilt? Well, here's a good way to use them. You take one big long strip that you have not included in a strip set, and you add them edge to edge as close as you can to each other, like butt them up right next to each other, and lay them right on that edge. And then you're simply going to pin them, because you know you want to be able to make it to your sewing machine without them falling off. Then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance down that entire length. And what you end up with is something not shy of even a miracle, let me tell you. You're going to go ahead where you had, you know, butt them up next to each other where the separate pieces are from away from that strip, and you're just going to simply slice those pieces. And what that does is give you little tiny 2 patches. I mean, it really is quite amazing, this technique. I've always loved this technique, and I utilize it in a ton of my scrap quilting. Now take those 2 patches and add even more to it. You can take a tiny 2 strips that are sewn together, like right there, sew them onto that strip in a different orientation, and you end up with all kinds of different blocks. No worries, you did not miss any steps. I'm gonna share with you how I make these blocks. This is what they look like right here. They're 12.5 inches square, unfinished. Unfinished means it still has the raw edge and has not been sewn into the quilt yet. Before I show you this though, I want to share with you that I am going to put borders around this quilt. This quilt's going to be square when it's done, but I'm going to do a thin border in white around, and then I'm going to use this fabric where I've minimalized it in these blocks, except for this one I made the focal here, and then I've just sprinkled in a little bit here and there with the green so that you pick it up with the border. So let me put it on top here and show you sort of how it's going to pull that. That white border has a tiny bit of shimmer in it, which I just love. I don't like that really thick shimmery fabric that has that metallic look. This white right here just has a very soft, subtle sprinkle of glitter in it almost, but the fabric still remains extremely soft. Yeah, I don't like that really thick fabric where you can't even bend the cotton, right? So just imagine that this is on all 4 sides, the white and then this beautiful rose. Huge shout out though to Di from Sister Chicks Quilting. She sent me this as a gift. A couple yards of it, I can't remember because I already cut it. But she knows me, I love roses. So you can see how this little bit of green here and in here and even there and just all throughout pulls that right out of the border. I just think that's gonna look so good. So I wanted to share with you all that is left from what you saw me cut at the beginning as far as those fat quarters went. Remember, I only cut 3/4 of it. I have a few strips, and then I have these scrappy strips here that we may use to finish up this quilt for sure. And then I have all of these strips that are already sewn up like you saw me do earlier in the video. So let's get started, and I'm going to share with you how I do this. Think of a log cabin block, which is just taking a focal center, which these are any size you want. You can make them square, rectangle, whatever, like I shared with you earlier. All you're going to do is attach some of the scrap that you've already made to one side, trim it, add, trim it, add, and you're going to press 2 in between. That's very important because you want that nice squared off look. So let me show you how I do it. You can start on any of the 4 sides here. If I put it up here, maybe you'll be able to see better. I'm going to look through the scrappy bits here first to see what I have that will fit this. I think right out the gate, I'm going to go with some of that has some of the green in it. Now let me see if it fits there. No, it's just shy of that. So I'm going to use this over here. You can see I chose a piece that was a little bit longer than the focal fabric. That's okay. You're still going to just flip it over and sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to go ahead and just finger press that where you want it. So you're just going to take and press that out. When the pieces are this small right here, I just have a small ruler handy because if you pull out your 12.5 inch ruler, it's kind of awkward, you know, when you're trying to just cut smaller pieces. So hopefully you can see this. So I'm just going in on the one side here and I'm lining up on that seam allowance where those 2 fabrics meet, because I want to maintain this nice squareness throughout the quilt. Flip it over and then come along the side here. And I'm looking at a couple things. I'm looking at the edge of that strip, making sure it didn't bow. And then I'm looking at where the 2 fabrics meet up. So you're kind of looking at a few different things here because you want everything to be nice and square. And I do notice down here that this is not that square. And so I'm just going to come in, line everything up. I mean, it's ever so slight, but those ever so slights add up. Trust me. There we have that. Now we need to find one that goes here, because in log cabin quilting, you add one here, attach it, press it, trim it, and then you're going to find a piece that fits here and add it. I don't know if we have already got some pieces that are that length. I don't know. That one's not fully done. But you can see how these come in really handy when you're looking, because you just might, oh, this one might fit. No, this one is just shy, but it also has this fabric that's the same as this. And it's okay if it's just small because it does look kind of neat when you're looking at it. I know I say no 2 fabrics should touch. Where's the one at? There was one in here somewhere that it looked really cool that it was like that. I don't know where it is now, but I don't know. But when you look at it in the end result, it kind of looks like it's going this way and dropping this way. That's how no one can really tell how you pieced the crumb cake quilt. So that's a little long, so I'm gonna put that over here for now. And then I'm gonna look over here at these, and I may bring this over and just line this up along here to see how those look. So you can see here how that is going to look if you hold it like that. And I think I like that orientation. Now, the one thing that you have to make sure and note is that when you go to attach these, you can see that this seam allowance is here. You want to offset where you put that. You don't want to put seam allowances on top of each other where those two fabrics meet. That's the whole look of this quilt, is nice and scrappy. So all you want to do is take this and shift it just like that. So now our seam allowances, they are not competing with each other. And then I flip this up. You just want to make sure, again, that you have enough on both sides for trimming. But if you mess that up, it's really not the end of the world, because you can always just trim that initial piece down. Now I know you all are going to ask me about this round board here that I'm ironing on. All it is, friends, is just plywood. That's it. Look, it's just plywood. Almost like a particle board type thing. And then it has a ton of homemade elastic coverings. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coverings over top of this, because I just keep covering them when they get bad. So that's all it is. It's just some elastic and whatever. Now you're going to bring in your ruler after you've pressed it, and you're going to come along the sides here, lining up where those two fabrics meet together. Flip it, and then come over here. This is what you have so far. You've gone here, attached it there, and now you've attached this long piece to those two pieces. You can even take a couple of these pieces and sew these together to get what you want here. And I think that's what we'll do, because, hey, we're getting rid of some scraps when we do that. They don't even have to match up perfectly, because we can square those up. I'm going to grab a little bit of a bigger ruler here. Once you get some long pieces, you may notice that you need to get a longer ruler. So I'm just trimming up these two scraps that we just sewed together, but I need to make sure that everything is nice and square. So I can come in with this piece and I can look, do I like it better there? Or do I want to flip it and go here? Now I think it looks much better the other way, because you have this longer piece here, and plus this is a darker fabric against that white. It just looks better to me. And plus these seam allowances are far from each other, which I like. And so I'm going to make sure I have enough on both sides, flip it together, and then just sew it on. For those of you that want more info on my Laura Star, which is the best iron ever, be sure to check out my info box. All the info's there. Any info that you need to know, I bet you'll find it in my information box. Just click more, you know, at the bottom of this video somewhere. Lining up where I've attached those fabrics at. So here's what we have. That is looking great. I love the way that looks. Next, we're going to find a piece that fits there. Preferably that has different fabrics in it than what we have already. So there's this one here, which look, oh my, that fits pretty good. And I'm going to check it that way, and then I'm going to turn it like this to see how I like that. And I think I like it this way. Now I can shift this a little bit, but I only have about a ½ inch of shift. If I want more shift, then I'm going to have to find a longer piece. But I can shift this one all the way to this edge here, so that way it does offset those seam allowances. So I like that. I'm going to flip this down, line it up where I want it, and then hold it and just sew it up. If this quilt don't make you Scrappy happy, then I don't think you're a scrap quilter. Just saying. Now, since your seam allowances are not on top of one another, you shouldn't have a problem on which way you press this, really. You should. I'm going to grab my 12½ inch ruler, because I am getting bigger here with the square. So now it's time I need to check where I'm at within this block as far as how much more I need to add on each side. You don't even have to have that focal fabric in the center if you don't want to. You can, let's see, you can offset it to the point where the focal fabric is toward the bottom and all you see there is a strip, or you can bounce it to the corner. You can bounce it low again, high, in the center. You can bounce that focal wherever you want because everything blends so well that it's just gonna look good. Okay, so we've added this, then that, then this long strip. And I'm thinking we need a solid strip in here somewhere. So let me look. See, how long do we need? We need pretty long. We have this one. We have this one here. I don't know if I want that one. I have it up there already and down there. Let me just look here. That one's not quite long enough. This one's already in the block, but see, this is where you get to creatively put what you want in there. So we've got a ways to go yet. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4.5 more inches that we need to add. So it can be a skinny strip or a medium or whatever. I also look at that kind of a thing. So let me put this down. I'm going to see if I can't add this one to another strip already to see what that looks like. So, well, that's that one. If I turn it like that, nope, that's got too much of in there what I had already. I don't like that either. Oh boy, just the decisions to be made, right? What about that? No, that polka dot's in there. See, friends, this is what happens. Okay, this one, actually, that one fits. Okay, but I wanted a long strip, but okay, I'm not gonna do that then. I'm just gonna go ahead and add this one because I really like this one. So I'm just gonna line it up, make sure that there's no seam allowances that are competing, and then I'm just gonna flip it and add it on. Don't you hate it when you flip seams? I just flipped one. But I tend not to make that one of my battles these days because you just can't help it sometimes. If I go back and undo all of my flip seams, we might be here quite a long time, friends. I'm gonna lay my 12.5 inch ruler down because we are at that moment where I think I need it. Measuring things up, seeing where things lay. Very good. Okay, so I should move these so you can at least see them better. Or see this block better anyways. Okay, so there we have that. We just attached that. Now let's find a solid, Tracy. Come on now. So I did not use this one yet, so I guess I'm gonna use this one. It's just a brighter blue, and I really didn't want to be in that brighter blue color range for that anyway. So let me see if I can just add, like I can add these two together because this one's not even in here yet. Yeah, and they're not even the same width, but that's okay because I can trim it. You can do anything you want, friends, doesn't matter. I don't know that I have one that's already wider though. I don't think so. And then you'll just press these and then trim it. I tend to start trimming on both sides as well, this side and that side, because I don't know which way I want the coloring to go until I get it up to the block that I'm working on. Because you can shift it pretty much any way you want, so that's why I kind of just trim both sides, because 9 times out of 10, I only trim one side, put it up there, and I'm like, but I like the other side better, and it's all jagged. So, yeah, I've learned my lessons. Okay, so we want it down here. So if I line it up edge to edge there. I'm offset just a little bit. So if I turn it this way, what do I get? Yeah, I like this way much better. So I'm just going to lift this up and sew it on. I do tend, though, to press my seams outward in a log cabin block, just as a side note. You know the drill, trim it, and then add on another piece. Okay, let's take a look, friends. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that looks good, right? We do have that little piece in there. I didn't even see it. See, I don't even see sometimes what I'm doing. I like it. So let's see how much farther we got to go to get this block to 12.5 inches. The next add-on is on this side, since we're log cabining it. So if I go like this and put this all the way to the corner edge here, I can see that I have about 2 inches left, and that will close that up. So I want to make sure that I have about a 2.5 inch strip. And then I'm going to need a wider one here maybe, or 2 strips. I don't know yet. So let's find something that's 2.5 inches. So I just grabbed a couple of these scraps here. Are those 2.5? I don't even know. Yeah, that's 2. This is 2.5. Friends, don't fuss like I do, right? And that kind of looks good there, and I can add, is this 2.5? Yes, it is. So I can add more to that. You've got those polka dots there. But this is small enough over there that I could probably, but then there's that. Okay. I can add that onto there. Let me do that real quick. It's almost like I wish I had like 50 different blues to choose from, because I'm always looking for a different color or print or whatever to go within the block. So if you're like that, you may want to consider more variety. But I thought 22-ish would be enough, right? But I guess it's not, friends. I love variety. By the way, this is why they call this crumb cake piecing, because you use all of the bits. You don't leave anything, you know, and if you do have anything left, you'll just put it in your scrap bin and use for another day. Okay, so if we put, now we can add that, let's see. So I can add this like here would be good, but then I need a top and a bottom piece. What could I use? Let me, oh, there's this one. Let's see. That's small though, because this one is not in here. Okay, let me add this. We're just adding tiny pieces on. This is, though, kind of what happens when you get down to the nitty-gritty end. And you can see I've only got a couple, you know, I got 1 block left after this. That's kind of what happens. You have to kind of get creative. I don't plan out any of my videos to the absolute, because everything I do is mostly all improvish type quilting. So hopefully you guys can understand what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of this here. I did end up cutting this one extra just now because, yeah, I felt like we needed it. We're definitely going to have some strips left though, definitely. So I can go this way now, or I can shift it like so, which I think I really, really like that. So I'm just going to flip it and sew it. And that gives me exactly 12.5 across from this side to this side. So that's good. So we already have that taken care of. But we still have this top portion to take care of. Line everything up good. Nice and square. Your lines in here should be pretty right on, and if they're not, just fudge the lines until you get a happy medium. Okay, now we have this one to play with later. All right, look at that. See how nicely that comes in? Oh, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, now I noticed I do not have any of that one light, this fabric right here. I don't have any of this in there. Thought I had a piece. Oh well. Okay. So I want to incorporate that in here, I think. Which it's in this right here, but it's in this one. How would that look? Well, let's see how much we have left though to get. All right, so when I line this up, I have about, I'm gonna need at least a 3-inch strip. So this one is probably 3 this way. Yeah, so this is the standard here. 3-inch width, so we need to find something that goes along that. Which I think that matches up. Again, you're incorporating some of that. Is that too much? I don't know. If we go like this, we can cut some of that out. So if I go like this, oh, but it's right there. So if I, oh, but then it's on top of each other. Forget that one. This one, however, might be the ticket, but it's not quite 3. Polka dots. This is my life, friends. This is what I come in with, all these problems all the time of where to put these blocks. Now this isn't too bad, right? Your polka dots are far enough away. This blue here and that blue there, but I don't think it's gonna really do anything. So let's go ahead and sew this on and see what this looks like. The worst that can happen is we don't use it and we use it somewhere else. All right, let's take a look-see. So we can go that way, like so. Or we can flip it like this. I think I might like that better. Okay, let's go with that. And that's exactly the amount that we need. So, and nothing is competing with each other, so we're good there. Let's trim this up now. Now we're at the point where we are definitely going to trim this now 12.5 inches square. Which honestly, I think I just hit right on the money. I did. Can you believe it? Okay, so that's not happened throughout this whole quilt. I attached that and that makes it exactly 12.5 inches square. Wow, and I don't even have to trim, nothing's short. Okay, that has never happened. That has never happened, friends. Okay, so now it's time to add this puppy back into the fold. Let me add these closer so you can get a better look at how this is going to be. Now you might notice that you have some touching and you have the freedom within this quilt. See these two? They're the same print. You can shift it, unless of course it's directional and you want it to stay directional. You could flip it like that or like that. It's totally up to you. Totally up to you. And, you know, you can check it down there, make sure you're not touching there. I know, I got issues with the touching thing, right? I really do. Okay, let's add that in. So hopefully you can get a good look. Let me back this out so you can kind of see. So that looks pretty good to me. That looks really good. So we just have this block to do, and then we can put it all together. Here's my quilt top all sewn up. I am in love, friends. This quilt is so romantic and so crummy and so beautiful and so scrappy. This is totally me. If you had to summarize Tracy from the Sewing Channel in one quilt, I think it's going to be this quilt right here. Are you this quilt? Tell me in the comments. So here's the deal, friends. This is part 1 of 2, because there's no way I could finish this video for you in a timely manner so that you all stick around. So come back next week where I am going to sandwich this quilt, put it on my regular home sewing machine, and do some free motion quilting. There is a reason behind this quilt, why I even decided to make it. And the reason is kind of selfish. I really want to do some free motion quilting of roses all over a quilt, and the best way that I can think of is to make a quilt that deserves some real pretty roses in it. Look at your screen right now. I've handpicked videos just for you if you like today's tutorial, but be sure, come back next week so you can see how this all turns out. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.